Hello there, I'm Flair, and today we're back with another part of my variant design tutorial, or guide, I suppose. um, Last time, in part 1b, we ended up setting up the initial map structure for our first variant. Which takes place during the Sengoku period in Japan. So, as I said, this is where we left off. We had placed down the powers we want on the map, and we have begun to think about what kind of triangle dynamics we can have between them. We have considered where we want to put our neutral clusters. Since last time, I've done some preparations. Let's remove that and that layer, and let's turn on these ones. So, I thought I'd put in some nice colors for our powers. So, to run through, we have the Chimasu, the Mori, the Shosokabe, the Oda, the Tokugawa, the Takeda, the Uesugi, the Hoyo, and the Nanbu. Sorry for any pronunciations. I did some research for what colors were the most fitting, but it's not perfect, sadly. So, if you want to, I've done these little crests, or mon as they're called in Japanese. If anyone wants a short video of me going over how to make these kind of things, I'll make sure to upload it. Just comment below or something. So, what are we going to do today? We're going to focus on basic center placement. This includes both the location of home supply centers, as well as the units we place in them, along with some ideas for where to start placing our neutrals. I will probably cover a bit of some concepts such as chaining in lighter detail today. We won't start drawing any borders today, I think. We're just gonna theory craft so far. So I actually did some preparations before this. Let's hide that. Let's turn on the reference layer. Because this reference layer has a lot of city names or town names, castle names, and region names. And this is something that this is, in my opinion, the best first step to placing your home supply centers. You want to understand where the important cities within the borders of your powers are. What is the capitals, what are the important ports, and so on. So I did some research, both with the help of this map and otherwise. If I'm missing something later on, feel free to comment on that. I often find like one above what I want to place finally, so I have some flexibility. Although in general I've not been able to find super many cities for some of these powers, so it's been a bit restricting. But I think one general thing that we should always remember is that restrictions are good when doing variant design, because if we have like everything to play with, there's no limitations to challenge us, and we have far too many options. Sometimes having restrictions on our options is very good and allows us to challenge ourselves. So yeah, I did some preparation as that, and I have actually marked what I think should be the home centers. Let's hide that layer. I've put the name next to the ones that weren't already placed on our reference map. I just placed everything in its own layer here. That way we can easily hide it away. Let's put up the moms again because they're nice. Oh, okay, never mind. It's gonna overlap with stuff. I think we go through my thoughts for all of these powers, and then we can move on to thinking about unit placement and some initial neutral placement. So let's begin with the Shimazu. I actually want a reference image. I managed to figure out that Kogoshima was the seat of the Shimazu. So of course we need that center for the same reason that we always add the capital of a country as a center, for example. It's just important. And to catch the vibe, we should strive to include important cities as supply centers. Miyakonoyo was also important. I found another very important place right around here, but I felt like I wanted to find something on the west coast, which I did some research for, and I found Izumi. Sometimes you're not gonna find any important cities in an area you want centers in, and in that case it's okay to just try to find something else. But the reason why I did want this center is that the Shimazu has a fleet that can go up into this area very quickly, maybe even have a sea tile which could turn them very easily against the Mori. We move on to the Mori themselves. I decided that I really wanted a dot on Kyushu to make sure that they had a good connection to the Shimazu. Yoshida was the seat, if my research is correct, so I wanted that. And I also wanted Mijayima to make sure that they had a unit that could go over this strait very early on to simulate this triangle dynamic between these three powers. Similarly, not similarly, but the Shosukabe was a bit more challenging because there wasn't a lot of towns to go after. So I just selected the necessary ones. Most of them are along the coast, so there's not a lot of variance here, but we'll figure out how to make that work later on. What's important here is that it does align with our probable vision of the power. I imagine the Shosukabe will be a quite naval power, so having them very close to the coast will make that a very strong part of the power. We move on to the more complicated area, to say the least. The Oda and Takeda are the two powerhouses of this variant. Currently, I have given them both 4 supply centers, although I'm considering removing one from the Oda. But we'll get more to that soon. Why is the center placements like these? So the Takeda, they need 4 supply centers due to their low access to neutral ground and a lot of close neighbors. So I've given them 4. The Gifu or Kyoso, I'm a bit unsure, was the seat at the time, and the other one was also very important. So I wanted to include this core area of the Oda and represent it properly, making sure they can play into this Takeda Tokugawa Oda triangle and also having a lot of power up here towards Kaga. But I also wanted to make sure that they didn't just have like a weak stronghold over to this area. So I've made both centers in Kyoto, which I think is important because it's like historically a very important city. I believe it's where the emperor lived. And along with Amagasaki, which was a very important port to control Osaka. And this is also one of the Oda's 2 ports on this map, along with Kiyosu. The goal, I think here, will be to make the 2 ends of the power quite separated by neutral tiles in the middle. And that is my way to balance giving them 4 centers in this scenario. Whenever you're giving a power more than the standard amount of supply centers, it needs to have a heavy drawback. The drawback that the Takeda have is that they are surrounded and have low neutral access, and they need to be able to fight on their borders very early on, very aggressively. The Oda, we're kind of approaching this split nation kind of thingy, and that Russia also does. Russia is the only power in Classic that is split in 2, and we want to do something similar, and that's a heavy enough drawback, I think, to make sure that the Oda can still be balanced with 4 supply centers. The Takeda were a bit challenging to select cities for. I wanted to make sure that they didn't have too much in this Suruga region, to make sure that the Hoyo and Tokugawa didn't just get overrun, because I really needed the center in Odawara, because that was the seat of the Hoyo, if I've understood this correctly. So I'm mainly putting stuff in the center. Takayama is a bit far away from their core of power, which is more around this area. Or Komaro could have worked as a center as well. But I really want them to have quick access into this Kaga area. Tokugawa, I found these 4 pretty much. From my research, Kakegawa and Yoshida was about as important, but I already have a city called Yoshida, so I selected Kakegawa instead. And this does push Takeda's like naval access towards the east side of this river, so we'll have to see how we design this little area. But it'll be interesting. For those who've been worrying about Tokugawa, the goal is to make it so that they have a neutral on one of these islands that Hoyo can't reach. My plan is to have the fleet on the east coast of Edo. Imagine this being a tile. And the fleet is over here on the west coast, heavily incentivized to go up towards Date or Nanbu. Maybe also let them have the opportunity to go towards this part. But we'll see exactly how we end up designing Tokugawa. But the goal is to ensure that they are one of the few powers that have a true guaranteed neutral on this map. Anyways, the Hojo. The Odawara and Edo was quite clear. Edo because it's very historically important, and Odawara because it was the seat, as said. Kawagoe was another very relevant Hojo city, and it lined up good with my vision of having something a bit more inland to be able to contest the Uesugi. And the Uesugi was a bit complicated. Kasugayama is where the Uesugi had their castle, if my research is not correct. Nagota and Niigata. Did I say Nagata? I don't know. These two were important towns both, so I selected those. We have a good spread of cities on this end, I think. So I'm cool with that. Lastly, we have the Nanbu. I've only given the Nanbu 2 supply centers. And the reason for that is that they are so incredibly coronary. So I want them to have a bit slower start, but I think they should have a lot of possibilities to utilize the chaos in the center of the map. We'll also give them the options to sail very quickly down the west coast here, along with probably the east coast. We'll probably have some big sea tiles down the edges to make sure we can have a quick naval. Oops, one of my venules dropped. So anyways, to make sure that we have some quick naval action over here. So, oops, that is the home supply centers I've selected for now. We might need to revise this as we continue, as we start actually like designing the map, because we're not just in the theory crafting part so far. So, anyways, I considered a bit what units to place down. And this is very interesting because I initially thought of this map as a very navally heavy map, due to it being an island. But I think the central part has become a region where armies are very necessary, and I love that. Army fleet diversity is something I'm gonna talk about sometime, but in general, the more mix you have between the two in your map, the more fun the dynamics get. Having powerful fleets in a army setting is so fun. So anyways, what units did we decide on? Give me one moment. So let's turn on my unit layer. I just did some very standard Imperial Diplomacy units for now. We're probably gonna make some nicer ones down the line. I think that's probably gonna be its own video because I wanna do something special for these graphics. Yeah, okay, let's see here. I think we can start in the west again. So, for the most part, this is gonna be the most fleet-heavy region of the map, and the power starting setups reflect it. To begin with, the Chimazu, they have mostly fleets, sovereign fleets, except for Izumi. This fleet will probably have some capacity to go north. There is probably going to be a supply center around this part, but otherwise you have this army too. I think this was the most natural place for an army, really, because it already wants to go north. Why not place it there? We can probably change it around later if we feel like that's necessary, though. For the Mari, I also wanted them to have 2 fleets. Oops. The fleet in what is this region called? In Kokura. The fleet in Kokura is gonna be pretty funny, I think. It's going to mostly be invested in Kyushu, but it can of course also go through this strait towards this island, which is called Shikoku. But it's most likely just gonna stay in this area, and I'm cool with it being a fleet. This one is a fleet so that it can go over the strait very early on. I might make an island tile in this area to make sure that the armies can walk over to Kono here as well, and that the armies from Shosokabe can walk over to Mari as well. The main reason why the Mori is set up this way is because I wanted the army to be as east-facing as possible, because it's the region where armies will be the most useful. Similarly, Shosokabe, they're very much a naval power, but this army will have the possibility of either walking through this potential island tile or this one, because if we look at the reference, the Miyoshi clan holds this area, and I'm thinking we can probably make that entire thing into a supply center, which should bring in some very fun tension between the Oda and the Shosokabe early on. Very funny. And the army going over here could really become interesting, I think. So it's just the most flexible spot to put that army. The Oda, I mostly want them to have armies. I decided to place their fleet in this bay because it's very flexible against both their neighbors here. It can sail out here, but also through this stretch here. The only other port that you have is this city, which is called Kiyosu. I did not want Kiyosu to be a fleet because I didn't want to bother Tokugawa too much. They will need some control of the area around them, and giving them naval control is the best I can give them. So them having an additional army in the area instead could mean that they have more power against the Takeda, which should make the area more dynamic. And that's pretty much the Oda. The Takeda, I've decided to give 4 armies, but it's worth to note that this center will be adjacent to the coast, which means that they are able to build fleets in that center later on. The reason why it's not a fleet is the same reason why Kiyosu is not a fleet. I want to give Tokugawa some peace. This should make Takeda's opening very fun, I think. Because you have these 4 armies, and probably only one is going to get a neutral. Maybe 2 if you manage to play nicely. But this means they have a lot of power to attack other players early on, and I think that's gonna be create some very fun first year situations. The Witsugi and the Hoyo have kind of similar dynamics here actually, as the Nanbu is up here, and I imagine they will mostly be a naval power because it's kind of choke point going across here. I wanted to make sure that both of their fleets were north facing, to make sure that we have a chance of like a Uesugi Hoyo alliance going up with their fleets against Nanbu, while the armies are fully dedicated to this Takeda problem. I think everyone having a lot of armies in the area should make Takeda threatened, even though they have all these armies. And it's not like these armies have to go against Takeda either. They will have neutral access up here, or here, in the case of Uesugi. So there's a lot of flexibility with where to go, but the option of rushing Takeda is always there. Finally, Nanbu. I'm not quite sure if we're giving them 2 fleets or not yet, but I think I want to keep them somewhat connected to the land. They probably will have a quite easy double this power, I imagine. At least one center guaranteed, maybe not this second. Depends on openings, or should depend on openings. But they need to have some sort of steam, since there are only 2 supply centers. In general, I don't know if the 2 center power idea is good, and I might revise it to be 3 centers later, but we'll see. Currently, I just want an army there to make sure that they can try to contest something in this area, while letting the fleets do a bit more crazy stuff. So that should be fun. Okay, so that's all the unit placements for now. In general, you should try to place units in a way where it creates a lot of different options for the power. Right now, we don't know the relative strength of all nations, which might change what ways we want to set up these units in. So that's very worth to note, but we haven't reached that stage yet. So this is our initial thoughts on how to put some dynamic into the map. Yeah, okay. The next thing we'll go over is my initial thoughts on where we want neutrals on this map. I've already said a bit about it, but we can get more. Ooh. Alright, so neutral placements. These I haven't actually done in advance. So, to begin with, I want to discuss just shortly how many neutrals you actually want on a diplomacy map. And I think it greatly varies. It very much decides the early game play loop. Some variants, Imperial Diplomacy, has a lot of neutrals. I think Imperial Diplomacy has like 55-45% split between home centers and neutrals. Classic has about 2/3 to 1/3 home centers to neutrals. And that, I believe, should be the standard for most of your variants, especially if you're new. Because making a high neutral count map has the big disadvantage of easily making railroaded openings. There's a very clear way to open because there's a lot of supply centers to just take. If that's gonna work, there needs to be a lot of options in how to take these supply centers, or many different sets of supply centers you can take, which is something I'm constantly striving towards fixing in Imperial Diplomacy after my little mistake of adding a bit too many. I got a bit aggressive with my some neutral supply centers in that one. Anyways, low center variants has some other problems but also good parts. If you have less than 1/3 neutral supply centers, it's very likely that the mid-game starts immediately. There is no space for a proper year 1 of getting to learn the players around the board and growing initial trust. I think that is very possible to do, and I think some variants have done that dynamic very well, even with higher supply center counts, such as Hellenic Diplomacy made by Conpope, one of my favorite variants. It's really well designed, but in general, I think it's easier to balance a map with an average amount of supply centers, because you have a bit more power of, you have a bit more leniency in your design that way. Anyways, so I've picked out 2 symbols, a star and a circle. The stars are supply centers I think are a need, a must, for the variant. The circle is the variant is a supply center I'm considering. I will just add them in like general areas currently. And the second thing we will do is that we will draw arrows between these supply centers and the powers, showing us which powers can go for what supply centers. This will be a very powerful tool for just getting an initial glance of what we're doing here. So this is the point where you once again go to your reference map, because you can find a lot of inspiration from this, of where like other powerful nations were, because those probably deserve to be supply centers, right? But I'll turn it off for now. I will start with Tokugawa, because I think Tokugawa is the most worrisome of our powers. I think the way I want to give Tokugawa a guaranteed neutral is giving them a supply center out at sea. This supply center should allow them to be able to then later bring in their navy towards one of their neighbors quite quickly, which is awesome. But it's also like just an opportunity to make Tokugawa the player that plays in the sea here. It's really a thing I'm searching for here. I'm gonna turn off the units and not the neutrals, because I want to make the arrows from them. Actually, let's have these units, because I want to make the arrows from them. So let's make an initial arrow here. And arrowhead, let's remember how we did it. Right here, right? Oops, wrong end. Oh well. Whoa. This is how we will mark our supply centers. We will drag arrows from the units to the center to indicate what units will be able to take it. I will make sure that both fleets are able of reaching the supply center to make sure that you have options in how to open. The next center I think we probably want is a center in this area, and one around this area. This center I think should be quite interesting, because it has the possibility of being relevant both for Tokugawa, only one for this one, along with some other powers, such as the Oda, and I imagine their fleet can also go there, along with maybe this Shosokabe fleet. Now the question is if we're feeling funny here, because we could make the Shimazu fleet able to go there. We'll leave that for now, but that's a concept I think we need to consider. So this neutral will be very important in general, I think. Because as I said, this is the Miyoshi, and we could probably make the Mori actually connect up to the center somehow. Maybe this Yoshida unit can get into Yukita or something very early on, which has influence over Miyoshi. That would be very interesting, because that opens up Yoshida as a kingmaker between these two powers, which I think has potential. Let's draw some more arrows towards the center here. Most of the times we want, if possible, units to have two different neutrals they can go for, because that creates the most fun choices. There we go. Okay, so we have some good stuff here. I know I want something on this island, and maybe an additional one. That's it for now, though. I think we want one. I know we want one here. We might want one here, and we might want one here. I also think it would be nice to have something that the Mori and the Shosokabe could fight over in this area. What we could do is, let's see. I wonder if we could make either Kono or Ishio a center, and okay, okay, so very interesting, because I think if we're adding Kono as a supply center, we don't want Shosokabe to have it as a guaranteed center with this army, because I think it would be really fun if Shimazu and Mori both had the chance to get onto it, and also Oda, because they're connected to Miyoshi already. So we just need to make sure that this army has a tile right here separating them from Kono in that case. But I think that has potential. Yes, I like that. So let's add a star there, actually. Okay, before we continue adding stuff, we need to check back on how many supply centers we're going to place. As said, I want 1/3 of the supply centers to be neutrals. This map has 28 home centers, I believe. So that means we want 14 neutral supply centers. How many do we have so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have a lot left. Okay, never mind. We're chill. That's very good. Cool. Nice. 9. Wow. Whew. Okay, maybe I don't need to worry after all. Okay, let's draw in some of what we imagine these units can go for. I think we could make this be a pretty fun center. The question here is if we want Ichiu, this thing, to be its own unique tile, to be separate from Ueda. That one is rough. Because I think we want the center to not be accessible by Takeda. Maybe it's fine to just have the easiest Uesugi center in this area. Let Nagaoka have good influence on that one, while like having it be Ashina or Date. While this fleet can have the option of going over here. The question is also if the Oda has enough, because I'm not sure if they do. So we might actually want something more in this area. Okay. Because we want to make sure that Gifu here has some options. Okay, sure. Let's start thinking about where we can move this stuff to. So we need to make sure to mark that this is not supposed to be adjacent. I'll just put an X over it like that. Or maybe 2 like that, just to indicate double move. Okay. And I think the double move should go for Nakura as well, because we don't want anyone to start adjacent to the supply center. There we go, let's take these ones. Let's rotate them a bit. There we go. Okay. So it shows Kabe might have a bit tough of a time getting a neutral supply center in the start. I don't know. They can put 2 on this, and they can put 2 on this as well. So I think we might be fine. I think they're gonna have a similar dynamic with Miyoshi here. Whoops. Let's get these 2 guys over here. Just to mark that properly. So, nice. We can probably make it so that this neutral over here is a center that Nakamura can reach. The question is there any islands between here? No, okay. I was considering if this should be an island tile or not, and if Kochi should be able to make its way over here. But let's make that properly like fleet thingy. Question is if this is gonna be Otomo, because we probably want Otomo to be relevant in some way because it was a powerful clan as well. Almost became a power on this map, so okay. Let's see the rest here. So I think we're gonna do this. This center looks very Shimazu, which I think is fine. But we probably want to find something more for them. Actually, let's add the thing we discussed earlier. Getting them the option to go over here. This should make that center very funny, which I enjoy. Connects Shimazu a bit more to the Oda and so on if the Oda gets control over this little peninsula. I don't know what to call it. So how many centers do we have now? I think I just added 1, so we're at 10. We have 4 left to add. And that's good because we haven't gone to the Hojo yet. Let's consider where these units are going. I think they should be fine to go. This should be fine to go for both these. Well, this one is gonna have a similar dynamics to these 2, so it's not gonna be able to make its way there in just 1 move. And that's good, I think. Nice. What we could make it so that is that Yoshida has the same situation here. You're probably not gonna make that move, but I like the idea of this fleet being able to go into like this Seto Sea while the army goes into this island chain. We might... Yeah, I have to consider if we want to see tile here in between that this fleet should be able to move to. But I think we're gonna let Yoshida have the chance to get this as well, actually. Because we need tension between these 2 powers somehow. And it's mainly gonna be these 2 centers, I think. But of course, this can also go over here. Very naturally, this can go over here. Okay. Of course, Yoshida can go up here, and we probably want this fleet to be able to go all the way over here as well. Whoop, just like that. Question is what we're gonna make that. I wanted to make it to Ukita, so we probably can't make the fleet go there actually. But we can probably make this fleet be able to go for that center. Let's move this so we're clear about it. And also moving this here to Yokita, if we're gonna connect it, it has some implications on both the Oda and the Shosokabe too, because that means, okay, actually, Oda can already just put this unit here, but it also means that the Shosokabe can place a unit on this. This is getting more complicated, huh? But we like that. We like complicated situations. Okay. This army should have a couple different options, including going for this and going for this. This is gonna be Oda's main neutral supply center, I suppose, because it's very close to all of them. Very close, yeah. Now the question is if we want this army to be able to go there too, or if it's mainly going to be opposing this area. This should be able to go there at least, and we probably want this to be able to go here. We'll decide on the star later. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We might actually use a bit fewer supply centers than I thought we might on this map. We'll have to go through and double check like how high the chances of everyone getting a center is, because I'm a bit worried about the Shosokabe right now. So we need to make sure that they can do well. We might need to make something more for them. We'll see. Okay. We need to mark that this Oda arrow isn't a direct connection though. Okay. So Takeda is gonna be a bit simple in what they can grab. They can grab this one. And they can grab this one with delay. And okay, let's see how we. This all depends on how we want to structure this later, but we probably want that to be an option, just to make sure that they can back that region up. I might want to put a empty tile between these two though, so let's keep ourselves open for now. This means that these two units doesn't have a neutral though, at all. Shit. I think that's fine. That's gonna be fun. The Tokugawa army doesn't have anything else either, so that's something. Okay. Let's double count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Okay. Let's consider. Okay, so we're gonna want like 3 centers in this region. Let's see here. We want 1 in date, I think. We need at least 1 that Hojo can get. We will need all these centers. Why did I think we wouldn't? Because Uesugi will need that one. So Akita is pretty much theirs. And it's going to be Sanohei. We can have 1 big tile like that, 1 big tile like that. Okay. What do we want the Hojo to get? They need something. They probably need an easy one too. Like Satake. Okay. That's all our centers done. Okay. let's see here. Okay. Okay, let's grab an error. And let's consider. This fleet should be able to pick up this. Ooh, need to go on top. Excuse me, where did you end up? There. Right there, as well as the option of going over here. Great. This army should have the option of going for this center. And this center. That's ugly. This army should have the option of going for this. This is just going to be the Hoyo center. They can go more aggressive if they want to. This is gonna be the Uesugi center. The Hojo will probably have some bounce stuff over here, so we want them to have a safe center. Okay. Let's see. Where is this unit going? It's going to this place. It might have the place to go here. Like if they bring down both units down the east coast, you can support yourself here instead of taking this center if you really want to. But we probably don't want it to be standard. Right there. And right there. We don't have to make this complicated for us. Okay, the Uesugi, they're gonna get direct access to this one. I'm gonna do some line work later. They should also have access to this one. Maybe we can make this a like Belgium style tile. Question if they have access to this one. Can we make that? We probably can. That would be fun. It probably means we have like a big tile here though. It's super strong. And might make it so that we probably wanted to make it so that Sanohe can't get into Akita turn 1 then. But maybe the fleet can. That works. Okay. Okay, this fleet, what can it go for? It can go for the center pretty much. It can go for this. And I think that's it. Down with the reference. We're gonna add all the markings very soon, Kasuikayama can take this one. It can take this one. And we can probably reach this one too with infall. Okay, we're starting to approach something. Now the question is what we want to do with Nanbu here. It's gonna be interesting because we could make it so that they can reach like all the way down here if we really want to. The question here is also if we want to take the Nanbu and hook them up to Tokugawa. Because that is an option. I don't think the Nanbus should take this very often. Because they have more like have closer centers that they really need to take. So maybe we're happy here. Like just add in some markings and then be pretty happy with our initial supply center sketch. Huh, that's very cool. This is gonna be a one like that. I don't think I've been consistent with when I marked this as a fall move, but it's okay. So basically I think we make everything a fall move for them. Just to make sure that they have some trouble getting tempo. and they might need to focus to get something initially. And that's fine, because the Hojo and Uesugi will have enough to care about already. Okay, and I think we're starting to broach something I'm pretty happy with. A lot of small stuff going on here. Hopefully it's possible to take something from this. Okay, if not, I'd love feedback on how I go through these kind of things. This might need to be a 2, but I'll drop the symbol there just for now. This probably needs to be a 2, but the other one doesn't. Okay. Okay, I think we're... Okay, we need to go through this process with the Shimazu and Shosokabe a bit. But we're approaching it. How wonderful. Not exactly sure how I want to handle this area, so I think we might leave it here very soon. But I have some... So, in general, it's good to have neutrals be 2 moves away. Because that makes it so that you are active during the whole first year and not just spring. Which makes for more interesting gameplay. Although you have to consider the Shane's effect on it. I haven't really looked on the Shane here yet, but we do have some chaining going on from what I can see. For those who don't know, chaining is when multiple supply centers are connected to each other, creating this like structure of a center being connected to a center being connected to a center being connected to a center. When 2 supply centers are adjacent, you are more likely to follow through and like continue attacking these centers being adjacent to the center. Which means that if you connect 2 centers, you create a lot of tension there, and which pretty much can allow you to guide the player towards certain directions. It's very useful, but I'll make a full video on it later. Anyways, we have a couple more markings to do. This will just be a pure fall neutral. Those are very nice to have, by the way. Wonderful. I marked it for Shimazu. Okay, wonderful. Okay, I think we're done here for today. I hope you're able to take something from this. It's a bit chaotic, and really variant design is just learning the feel of stuff. It takes a lot of trial and error and just trying to get a feel for what you're creating. Some patterns you like develop as you continue learning and working on your stuff. Yeah, and I'll try to transfer as much of it as possible by just rambling about my thought process. And this is how most of my modern variant sketches actually look. I did it for Imperial Diplomacy, I did it for Cold War, I did it for Fire and Blood, so I've done it for a lot of neutral, a lot of variants lately, and I think it's the way to do it. So anyways, the next video I'm a bit unsure exactly what we're doing, but it might just be like a devlog of this variant, where we like actually start putting down the actual tiles and so on. But we'll see. Anyways, I'll see you.